Among the poorest countries in the world, drinkable water is valued above all other resources. Let us not take it for granted.
You don't cut up the Mona Lisa to make a buck, and you don't chip away at David for a few tax dollars. And you don't slowly strangle Barton Creek for the profit of a very few.
I love Barton Springs, and I wouldn't want it to be messed up. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're the best thing that could conceivably happen to Barton Creek and Barton Springs. Our water qualities are standards that will have no impact on creek water.
We've asked the important question, is it going to protect the creek, and is it going to protect Barton Springs? And we have the answer, and that answer is no.
I think also has been deleted from the June 7th draft.
I came onto this campus of the University of Texas in 1956 as a young boy from Houston. I was up here on a football scholarship, and at the same time received a degree in geology. I got a Bachelor of Science degree in geology with honors, and graduated with the highest grades of any football player on the University of Texas track. We categorically state that we exceed water quality standards, and as a geologist, I will promise you, I know more about Barton Creek than anybody in this room. We have never been cited for a significant EPA violation. My directors nor I would not involve ourselves in any kind of a violation of environmental standards. We will categorically not pollute Barton Creek. Thank you. You're talking to people here who have a lot of heart and a lot of money. I'm sure more money than anyone else invested in this area. But we also have a lot of heart and a lot of emotion in it. And for anybody to suggest that we're not here to save Barton Creek is a tremendous fallacy. We have more reasons to do it than anybody. It's lame. If you do not choose to be partners with us in this regard, obviously, we'll go ahead and develop the land. We have the legal rights to do it. We'll do it to standards that will be superior to the standards you're now requiring. You can count on that. We will be a competitor with you. We'll be a nice competitor, and hopefully, and certainly a good neighbor.
In 1978, these chambers were filled with just as many people. Just as many people were standing outside.
And in 1982.
The issue before this council, this city council, is do you want to be a partner, do you want to be a participant in the process of the development of this land?
Okay, council, are there questions for the applicant at this time?
Yes.
Councilmember Barnstone?
Thank you, Mayor. I have said that the burden of proof ought to be on the developer in this case.
We have accepted that challenge.
What this says is that you're going to set the standards at some future date, and then you're going to determine whether or not you've met the standards. And so what I'm asking you is, how can you say that you have now met the burden of proof when we haven't even developed the test?
We will meet the LCRA standard.
Right, but you do agree that that the only thing we could control is that which is in this agreement. In other words, we could not impose any further regulations.
That's correct.
That's it. In other words, whatever's in here, if we discover that some chemical that's used on the golf course or whatever is unsafe, if it's not within this agreement?
No, that's not what I heard Mr. Moffitt say earlier. He said that in the event that such things come to light, that
I didn't hear him
those
say that.
items,
But that's not what this agreement says.
this, on the 8 p.m. draft, that will be in.
I asked the question if we're not today writing the obituary of Barton Springs. I know everyone's in good faith and in good intent, but working with the Edwards Aquifer on a day-to-day basis is so sensitive, so subject to man's influence, and barely can handle the natural impact of bird droppings and so on, that during storm events, literally, all of these contaminants, sediment are flushed, partly underground, partly above ground, and eventually in Barton Springs and in the town lake.
You could fight, work, and cause there to come to pass a preserve, a watershed preserve, a national preserve, a state preserve, a sanctuary, something that your grandchildren's grandchildren will look back on and say, how did the city of Austin ever get its stuff together well enough to do something this far-sighted, this significant?
Mr. Dedman voted in favor of building the Mopac South Freeway down the very heart of the recharge zone for the Barton Springs Edwards, which is the aquifer in Texas most vulnerable to pollution. He voted in favor of that highway without a federal environmental impact statement. The bottom line is they haven't produced anything for us to look at. They've hired an engineering firm, but there's no report that says, here's our data, here's our methods, here's how this golf course is going to absorb all this effluent.
Well, I would question whether or not this company is really in Barton Creek for the long term. I'd like to read into the record a statement from the 1989 annual report of Freeport McMoRan. In keeping with the company's contrarian philosophy of acquiring assets significantly undervalued in the marketplace, FTX, that's Freeport, acquired in September for approximately $60 million one of the premier real estate developments in the Southwest. Situated in the Barton Creek area near Austin, Texas, these assets consist of a country club and a conference center and approximately 2,600 adjacent acres. FTX subsequently sold the country club and conference center and 200 acres for approximately $30 million. And this is the important part, retaining 2,400 acres for price appreciation and future sale. That's in their 1989 annual report. Now that sounds like real estate speculators to me. That does not sound like someone who's in this for a 40-year development. Who are they now? Are they lying to the council? Or are they lying to their shareholders? It's somebody. It's somebody. I think that ought to be addressed. From what I've seen, almost everyone who's spoken in support of the PUD or is wearing a little yellow badge is someone who does have a vested interest in this PUD. Either they work for Freeport McMoRan or for Dedman, or they own property that will appreciate in value when that development goes in. The masses of Austin who come out here, sign 900 cards, chanted in the streets all day, don't want you to do this. The people that want you to do it are folks, are the small minority of folks who have a vested interest in this development.
I work at a daycare center in South Austin, which serves 120 children and their families. And since we're talking about kids, because that seems to be a big thing here, I told them I was going to be at city council meeting tonight. They never come. They're curious what was going on. So I asked them, I said, what would you do if your mayor and your city council were to pollute Barton Springs so that you guys could never go swimming there again? We take them there a lot. They said that they would fire y'all. I told them they couldn't do that, all right? I told them they couldn't do that. I said, what if the people that did this to Barton Springs couldn't be fired? They said, well, we would like to make them swim in a sewer. These are children that said this. They're against Barton Springs, the people that want this. If you're free from the influence of developers and lobbyists, this is your chance to prove it.
Hello, my name is Susan Walker, and for over 20 years, my husband, Jerry Jeff, and I have enjoyed the waters of Barton Springs. Nowhere is there the equal of Barton Creek, the Edwards Aquifer, or Barton Springs. Not only are the springs the spiritual heart of the city, they also represent an enormous source of fresh water, a source which has become increasingly polluted with each successive development on the creek and over the aquifer. Jerry, Jeff, and I urge you to deny this PUD application. Strike a blow for Barton Springs, and you will have met your civic duty in the most profound and long-lasting manner imaginable.
Perhaps all of you have this memo. It's dated June 6, 1990. It's signed by Austin LeBrock. The 750 milligrams per liter for total dissolved solids in the spring and small tributary, this is below the golf course, is a value that would be expected if effluent is partially the source of water. What we've been trying to tell you is this PUD isn't going to pollute Barton Creek. It's already polluting Barton Creek.
I don't get down here very often.
Well, we're glad to have you tonight.
Thank you. I actually told my family I'd be home at 7, so I mean, I don't know. I've been living in Austin for 5 years, and I'm probably one of the only people in this room who hasn't swum in Barton Springs. But I can appreciate what people enjoy about it, and I can appreciate the fact that it's open to everyone in the community, that it's the life source for this community. This is our water supply we're talking about.
For the malls and MOPAC, and now the MOPAC access roads, and all the offices and apartment complexes, the scale was tilted in favor of nature, like up here in the Springs. Now, I don't know, and I doubt that anyone really knows, at what point this scale is going to tilt in favor of disaster.
For the last 6 or 7 years, I've been lucky enough to go to a town on the Atlantic coast of North Florida, which is a famous golf resort, about twice a year to work on various projects. And each year I see more and more development, more and more golf courses around this town, and I've spent a lot of time with the developers down there. And I would ask them, what are you guys going to do when you screw up your water? And they would always say the same sort of thing we were hearing here this afternoon. Don't worry, it can't happen. We're monitoring this. Well, I just got back from spending a month down there, and let me tell you what it was like this time. This time when I walked in, I turned on the faucet, and the water smells like rotten eggs when it comes out of the faucet. This silver cross that I wear around my neck, a month of taking showers in the water down there turned it dark brown, so brown that silver polish wouldn't dent it.
The City Council should muster the courage to say no loudly to this PUD. Remember that as Jim Bob comes barreling through the line, he is running into a tough defense assembled here today. You know, I'm just a little old country lawyer. I don't have any developer clients or anything, but I just went through this little old agreement and picked out a few things that you might be concerned about. They furnish their own personnel for monitoring the water quality and design and install the equipment themselves, and no planning commission or environmental review of changes that might occur in the future. How could you council members be expected to know what is in that contract if you're given it after 1 hour after your council convenes? But I want to close with this little reflection from my old friend John Henry Falk. He'd be here tonight if it weren't for the fact that he's gone. But he isn't gone in spirit, folks. Listen to what he had to say. My greatest disappointment is that we weren't able to summon enough civic responsibility to hold back the onslaught of the developers. Amen, John Henry.
You must assure us that it stays protected. I'm not a student of geology, but I do know that we live on limestone, and from what I read, it's a sieve. All the wet ponds and the protected areas in the world cannot assure us that some of these pollutants will not find their way into the springs.
I'm an aerospace engineer, and I've been in Austin for 6 years. I was going to use an emotional plea tonight to tell you how much I love Barton Springs, but There's a lot more people here with liberal arts backgrounds that I think can do it better than I can.
Spoken like a true engineer.
As an engineer, I can tell you that from experience, engineers can never be 100% sure of what they're doing. Just look at the space shuttle. An environmental board member stated earlier how complex the non-point source water problem pollution is. There's no way the developers, engineers, and analysts and geologists can ensure zero degradation of this water source.
If you want to pollute this aquifer, then you better be prepared to pay money for it. You know, that's the way I hope that the city council looks at it. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to get angry about this, but I am. And,
I wanted to say that the development around Barton Creek will not only mess up the environment for the people who live around it, but it will also be another problem for the kids when we grow up to take care of.
The developers say they can protect the creek. Don't believe them. Any fool can build a golf course, but reproducing Barton Springs is a little tricky. When it's gone, so is the best part of Austin.
Mr. Moffitt/Potter was quoted in the paper this last Monday as saying, if the council kills that project, you can forget about Austin having a major real estate developer come in and do it right. That was kind of humorous, I thought. I mean, heaven forbid.
And I think that we've seen examples of what the city can do, and particularly what the mayor can do when he puts his mind to a project. Witness the convention center. Barton Springs is the equivalent of a sacred shrine in this city. And if we don't preserve it, you aren't going to have a lot to attract people to that convention center.
My name is Michelle O'Reilly. I'm here this evening to represent the Greater Austin Chamber of Commerce and to urge you all that we do love Barton Creek. But we urge reason and balance in considering this important matter. Barton Creek is tremendously important in marketing the city of Austin. It's an important symbol to the city of Austin. The Chamber does not want our creek harmed. It's a valuable asset. It's a community symbol. But we do support this project and urge its approval.
Someday you'll be sorry when Barton's blue turns brown. It will have cost us a river, lost us a river. Don't let the people of Austin down. Run those developers out of town.
Our van down to Barton Springs Pool and did the show from there to talk to some of the people that use the pool in the morning to see what they had to say about all of this. And quite a few of them that swim early in the morning are older than most of the people that have stayed up all night here. They're you know, but they look great. There's a sparkle in their eye. There's a glide in their stride. They look fresh. And I watch too many movies, like this lady right here. I watch too many movies, I think, but I was reminded of the people in Cocoon, okay? They swim in the water, they hang out with the pods, and I asked some of them, I said, well, what's with you people? How can you be so energized this morning? And they pointed to the pool. They said, it's the water. And I would hate to see that go away, but more than any other movie, this all reminds me of kind of a Frank Capra movie, kind of a cross between Mr. Smith Goes to Washington and It's a Wonderful Life, and which is my favorite movie, and it's Jimmy Stewart's favorite movie, and probably some other people's favorite movie. And
it's my favorite movie, too.
Well, there you go. And you are our George Bailey, or you're George Bailey, and you're Lee Bailey, and you're Sally Bailey, and you're Smoot Bailey. And if you don't stick up for us, you know what happened in It's a Wonderful Life when he said he wished he'd been never born. It had Pottersville. We really don't want Moffattville.
out on Barton Creek.
Mayor Pro Tem Shipman.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a motion. The variances that have been granted by the Planning Commission and Environmental Board and not appealed are recognized as approved. However, I move that the City Council deny this planned unit development.
Councilmember Erdy, seconded. Councilmember Barnstone.
I'd like a clarification. Did I hear that certain variances are recognized as given?
You recognize that the Planning Commission has granted variances, yes.
The only justification for the variances were the supposed controls that were going to be developed at some future date. So now, what the motion is to grant the variances and no controls. It is really the worst possible outcome of the whole solution. Mayor, I make a substitute motion that we deny the PUD request.
Second.
Mayor, I think that the motion as stated is a complete repudiation of everything that has been said tonight. Speaker after speaker for now more than 15 hours has come here and said to us that this is where we draw the line, that we'll go to the wall or we'll go to the hill. And if we were to deny this motion and this PUD, we could go to the hill and we would go see the devil himself to protect Barton Springs.
It's time for a reality check. I mean, we all got to look in our hearts right now. You know, you're also talking about 3.2 million square feet of industrial. That's 3 times the size of Barton Creek Mall. It is.
And I think we flat need to deny this, make no mistake about it, no equivocation, and send that message, and we'll deal with the consequences.
Substitute motions on the floor.
I would like to include in it that we do not want this area incorporated.
I grant the thing.
Okay, so we roll it together.
And I think what I've learned at this week in this hearing is that there are symbols in this community and emotions of the citizens that are very, very important to the decision-making of this body. And I really appreciate you all being here and showing me the kind of commitment and concern you have about Austin, Texas.
And so if you are genuinely concerned about this, then you need to bird dog the entire budget process, and it will solicit not only just your assistance, but your militant and enthusiastic assistance in those efforts.
We have the substitute motion on the floor. Anybody else want to speak to the substitute motion? Call the roll.
Councilmember Nofziger?
Yes.
Councilmember Erdy?
Yes.
Mayor Cook?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Shipman?
Yes.
Councilman Barnstone?
Yes.
Councilmember Carl Mitchell?
Yes.
This closes the hearing, too.
Councilmember Humphrey?
Yes.
Now for a swim at Barton Springs.